Hello, friend. The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from beneath 4 million cubic feet of solid granite, in the burning heart of the Yellowstone caldera. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. So, keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground, as Sumo and Smokestack connect your main brain vein to a higher plane. Are you ready? Stand by.
Hello, we're doing our impression of the Canadian military. Did anyone else see that lately? Canadian soldiers cry wolf, alarming residents.
Are you expecting the audience to answer right now?
Yeah. I'm with. It's like in a kids show where you go, yeah. Does anyone else see my bandana?
Okay.
And you pause, and they go there. You go, what? Over there, and they go, oh, you're right. You're so helpful. That's
I
how
wonder
I feel about our
if
audience. Anybody
in the audience actually responded to Sumo's question out loud. I want to hear from you.
Yeah. I'm Dora the Explorer.
Yeah.
I'm Dora the Explorer, and you're the monkey that follows.
Yeah.
And the audience is muy bien.
Muy bien.
Muy bien. Because we always have to learn a little bit of Spanish on Dora, and this show. This is really the adult version of Dora the Explorer when you think about it.
Is that what this is? I've been one. Okay, yeah. Good. We're Dora the Explorer for grown-ups.
Yeah, because we're exploring things,
Muy bien.
And muy bien. So this was in the New York Times, which I say that not because I give validity to the New York Times, but because other people feel like it's real if it's in the New York Times.
Right.
Which you shouldn't, because it's not.
A lot of their stuff is
maybe
fake.
Is.
But except for this.
Right. So apparently, recently, the Canadian military decided to run a psyop on its own people in Nova Scotia and tell them that they had released wolves into their local area and to be afraid and stay inside. And they even went so far, so they sent them this letter, and then they went so far as to put up loudspeakers in the forest to broadcast wolf noises at night.
That's so messed up.
Now you say, why would you do? And I love how they say, like, oh, look, the goal was we just wanted to do this to some of our officials in the area. We never meant to, like, it says in the article, the warning letter about the wolves, quote, somehow got out to nearby residents. It just somehow ended up in their mailbox.
Somehow, by magic.
We didn't mean to. It was a regrettable and completely unintentional error that you received the letter. It's like, and all they talk about is the letter, like, but you set up loudspeakers in the woods around their house.
Well, maybe just somebody forgot to put a block in the flowchart somewhere. There was a flowchart design error, and it ended up with people faking a wolf invasion.
I'm going to read you the letter. This was a letter that ended up in people's mailboxes in a tiny town in Kentville, Nova Scotia.
Okay.
It's from it says the header is from the Wildlife Division of the Department of Lands and Forestry. September 19, 2020. To whom it may concern. On the 3rd of August, the Department of Lands and Forestry of Nova Scotia, in conjunction with the Canadian Wildlife Service, Environment and Climate Change Canada, untook, and that's a weird word, UNTOOK. That's not a real word. Untook.
It's a Canadian word.
Maybe undertook, or maybe that's Canadian for undertook. Untook the significant act to reintroduce the gray wolf Canis lupus to the forest of Nova Scotia. They have gray wolf and they write in parentheses its Latin name. Historically, the gray wolf was an active member of the Nova Scotia ecosystem until the early 20th century, where it was eradicated due to pressures of livestock and the farming community. The reintroduction of a pack of 8 wolves occurred in South Alton, Kings County area, and South Mountain. It was anticipated that the pack would remain on South Mountain and migrate south through large uninhabited areas surrounding New Ross. Unfortunately, the pack has migrated to Annapolis Valley in search of easy prey on livestock. The pack has been reported as far east as Stars Point, as far west as Cambridge Station, and as far north as Aldershot. There is a possibility that the pack may take refuge in Camp Aldershot training area due to its dense and available cover. If a gray wolf is encountered, do not provoke, enrage, engage, or feed the animal. Back away slowly while remaining calm. Do not turn and run. Should you spot a gray wolf, please contact me during regular business hours to ensure that you know the exact location. Thank you for the cooperation. Jason Spurl, large mammal biologist. And then it gives an email and a telephone number. And so residents of this little Kentville were obviously a little concerned. They're like, what, you put wolves in our town? And they started calling the city, and they called the county, and they called Nova Scotia, and they're like, what, we have no knowledge of this. No one from the Department of Wildlife, Department of Lands and Forestry, to our knowledge, did this. We don't know who Jason Spurl is. That email is fake, and the Wildlife Division has no knowledge. And everyone was like, what? You know? And then it came out like, actually, that was just the military running a psyop on you. And they just said that straight up. They're like, oh, yeah, the military was just doing a psychological test. I'm like, what?
Thank you for being experimented upon.
Thank you for being experimented upon. Please have a customary sucker as you leave the studio. Yeah, but apparently the explanation for what they did was they were trying to train their military about how to spot a psyop from a foreign military. Okay. So what they did was make their own psyop on their population and hope that their people would spot it.
Interesting.
So you see like this messed up thought process that government goes through, where it's like, well, actually, to save the people from psyops, we have to psyop them. You see?
Yeah. Yeah.
If we psyop them first, then we'll get good at spotting psyops, and then we'll stop them from being psyoped.
That's like the mission statement of mainstream media.
Yes. And so people are obviously a little rattled about this. Like the end quote of that article was like, if they'll do this, what won't they do? And I'm like, thank you, old boomer lady. That is what I've been preaching to the choir for 1,000 years.
I'm sure it was just an aberration. Government officials would never do this sort of behavior on a consistent basis. This was
it's not like they've done it all the time forever.
Yeah.
For these messed up, and it's always this weird national security reasoning, like, well, we need to see what will happen in case it happens.
Well, we need to spray St. Louis with radioactive fallout to see what would happen if one of our cities got attacked with radioactive
fallout.
Yeah.
And they really did that, by the way.
They really did that. That really happened.
That was a real thing. They admit to that now. There wasn't very much radioactive fallout, to their credit, but it was enough that some people may have gotten cancer. And they thought, well, we need to do it now because it'll save more lives in the future when the bombs do drop, which never then happened.
But, that was a historical aberration, and our leaders of our great nation would never do stuff like that on a consistent basis as an outworking of their moral philosophy.
Right. No, that would never happen.
Everything's going to be fine. Do you want me to play the Dan Dix clip about this Canada thing?
Yeah, play it.
Okay.
My main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody.
I'm sorry, that was the wrong clip. What? Just stand by. Stand by.
No, wait. And see?
Wait, what?
And then just leave it there and say, see? Just play that. Like, there you go. See?
It all makes perfect sense.
No, okay, play the real clip.
Okay.
Where people in Nova Scotia began to actually receive a physical letter in their mailbox coming from the government saying that we just have a bit of a warning. There are some wolves in the area. We purposely released the wolves, but now they may become a menace. And we just want to warn you that be on the lookout. There's dangerous wolves potentially in the area. This obviously had the townspeople rather concerned. And when they contacted the government of Nova Scotia, the government responded saying, this is not coming from us. This is a forged fake letter. They didn't even know at the time that it was actually the Canadian military who forged this particular letter, and it was all part of a massive propaganda campaign that they are carrying out against the Canadian people in an attempt to gauge how they would react to this situation, this scenario that obviously had them terrified. They even went to the extent, James, of putting up loudspeakers that would emit wolf noises in the area. So the extent to which they tried to scare the Canadian people just to, I suppose, gauge their reaction was absolutely insane. It goes beyond being illegal with forged documents, but it's completely unethical as well. And it begs the question, what else is the Canadian military doing in terms of propaganda and scaring the Canadian people that might not be real? It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, what else?
What else might they be doing?
What else? Like maybe global warming?
Yeah.
Or all of the things where they get you to do nonsense for no, like,
Black Lives Matter, maybe?
Yeah,
that might be a psyop.
I love how in this article, the New York Times, this is why you can't really, the New York Times writes, warning letters, quote, somehow got out to nearby residents. Like, they just accidentally showed up in your mailboxes. That was just whoops. But you don't whoops mail the same thing to hundreds of people.
Yeah.
You don't, that's not a, and you don't, like, whoops, we accidentally set up loudspeakers in the woods that have made wolf howls. Whoopsie! Sorry, it was totally accidental. And people are supposed to be like, yeah, sure, I guess it is. Is it accidental? It's accidental. No, it is.
It seems to me a little extra cruel to do this in Nova Scotia because I've been there, and my impression was that the people there are sort of nervous and squirrely anyway. And when you tell them wolves are going to eat you, that must have been a rough week.
Have you seen the you know, Canada's going through an identity crisis, and they've been trying to. There's been some proposals to like change the Canadian flag.
Someone's offended by the maple leaf?
Well, I don't know. They just wanted to make it different. And one of the proposals was just a white flag, and it just said Canada in black letters on it. And I thought, you know, that's actually the best symbolic representation of what Canada is. That's really just.
I didn't think anything could be more Canada than the maple leaf, but no, that's it.
That's more Canada. It's like, no, that is the
Canada.
perfect symbol. It's just Canada. It's just, and I've been to Canada also. I love Canada. It's great. But it is just sort of Canada. Like, what does it stand for? Canada. What does it want? Canada. What do they do? Canada. That's just it. It's like, there's nothing going on. You know?
Dude, it's true. I'm laughing so hard because it's true. Sorry,
I know,
sorry, Canadians.
I mean, we love you, but it's just like, what do you guys do up to today, Canada? You know, it's just.
Oh, well, the fishing is great out there. You got to give them that. It's incredible.
Canada isn't doing anything, right? It's not like anything. America is doing things, right? Mm-hmm. America is not good things. We're doing things.
We're doing something.
We're doing things. You know, we're creating a weird, messed up global culture.
Yeah.
We're bombing the Middle East. We're futures trading. We're doing things, right? We made a space force.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably fake. I haven't seen anyone go into space on this space force. But anyway, but we're doing stuff. But Canada, what's going on? You know, it's just Canada. Just Canada.
I think the Space Force is mainly satellite pilots.
I think so too. I think there's very few people like actually going to be like Space Marines, which is sad.
Yeah.
A lot more people would sign up if you made them Space Marines. That's all I'm saying.
Well, maybe we'll get some good propaganda films coming out.
Yeah, I hope so.
Like Starship Troopers reboot using Space Force.
Using Space Force,
Yeah.
which is just like NASA. They had to copy the Star Trek logo.
Everything is Star Trek with these people.
Everything is Star Trek with these people,
Yep.
and I don't know why. I mean, have you seen the new Picard show?
No, I'm
It's
not
actually
watching.
good. It's actually good. The new Star Trek, whatever it's called, Generations or whatever, is not good. But the Picard was good.
Okay.
But anyway, what were we saying? Oh yeah, they do things.
Wait, I thought we were gonna. This show was supposed to be the introduction to the interview.
It is.
With-
This is
with
the
Roy
introduction to
Blackstone.
the interview.
Okay, I see. All right, that's a good transition there.
Yeah, this is the introduction to the interview. Oh,
Okay.
and also, before so I did an interview. I talked about, I guess, on last show, or maybe I talked about on next show. I don't know which order these are going to come in at.
Well, it's
I
non-linear.
podcasted a lot already today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of podcasting, but with Roy, crypto expert, it's going to be great. You're going to hear it on this episode. You're going to love it. You're going to learn a lot of new things. You'll learn how to be free. You'll learn how to get money. Learn how to be rich. We'll make you rich and powerful and famous, but in a good way. That's my promise to you, is that after you finish this episode, you will be a multimillionaire.
Just send 20,000 bitcoins
To
Sumo.
to the address posted at the bottom of the link.
Right.
Now, if you guys seriously though, if you're in breaking new into crypto, if you make a wallet and send me your address, I'll send you just a little bit so you can figure out how to play with it.
That's a nice
I'm not
offer.
going to send you a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to send you a lot, but
A
I'll
pittance.
send you something that you could like, oh, I received bitcoins. Hey, cool.
Yeah.
And then you could try to send bitcoins just because you need to have that first couple of transactions. Because the first time you do it, it is a little like, what happened? Is the money that, what? Is it there? Where'd it go? You know? And it takes you a second to get used to how it works.
Well, that sounds like doing business with my normal bank, really.
Exactly.
Is the money there? I don't know. It might be.
Yeah, we're gonna go, but we go way into more than just bitcoins. We talk about the whole decentralization movement, resurrecting the spirit of the cypherpunks, all this great stuff. You know,
Sweet.
the cypherpunks were basically the people they were advocating in the 80s and 90s that the only way that people would truly be free of government tyranny in the age of the internet was to have cryptography, and they were 100% right. Recent events have proven them correct, right? Because if the government controls the internet, then they control a lot. But me and Roy talked about the next internet, Internet 2, and how you don't need to be the government. You don't need to involve the government at all.
Sweet.
That'd be great.
All right.
Because you know what? If you involve them, they're gonna put fake wolves in your house.
Yeah, they will.
They put fake wolves in your house, and they'll spray you with radioactivity, and then they'll take you to Jeffrey Epstein's island, and then they'll suicide you in a basement, and then they'll say, "See, the face on Mars is a natural phenomenon." That's what they'll say.
You really brought it full circle there.
That's
Good.
But anyway, we're gonna jump into this interview now. Let's do an interview jump sound. Ready?
Yeah, great. Thanks for doing this.
And no problem. I was checking out some of your other podcasts because I didn't want to just like get on completely blind. Seems interesting.
Yeah. Well, what did you think of the podcast?
So I listened to about 15 minutes of a few. I was just kind of jumping around. Seems interesting.
Yeah.
Certainly not like it's better than I expected. I'll say that. I was kind of just thinking some super like informal. Honestly, when you messaged me, I was like, "Oh, this is just some like noob," but it seems pretty professional. I like it. So,
Well, if all the professionalism of it comes from my co-host.
oh, nice.
I never know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
anyway, everybody, I'm here with the great Roy Blackstone, who is.
Oh, are we actually recording?
Yeah, I'm recording right now.
Okay, all right. Well, I got to put on the show face then.
Okay. Yeah, Roy Blackstone is a. What would you say? Would you call yourself a crypto expert?
I think other people would call me a crypto expert.
Yeah, I would call you a crypto expert.
Yeah.
I first became aware of Roy. I've been trying to get into Urbit,
Right.
and I was looking up videos on how to do that, and you came up, and you had a lot of very interesting things to say about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Other things in them. So, where are you? You said I knew you were a good computer guy because when I asked you to do this, you said, "What time am I in?" I'm in GMT +1.
Right.
Which is a computer guy answer.
Yeah, pretty much.
To give it like, in Greenwich Mean Time plus minus whatever. So, are you? I guess you're in Europe somewhere.
Yeah, so I'm in Italy right now.
Oh, nice. And are you Italian?
I am Italian. I'm 50% Italian. So.
Oh, cool.
I actually got out of Thailand. I was in Thailand for about a year.
Oh, see, there's another like your crypto credentials just keep going up.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of traveling, so I've been on all continents at this point. I think.
Nice.
I guess I haven't been on Antarctica.
Yeah, well, as our listeners will know, no one can go to Antarctica for the treaty reasons.
No. It's because they have a lot of COVID,
Yeah.
In
Well, it is a thing. There's some Antarctica treaty where you can't go there except for like the coast.
Yeah. Who owns Antarctica?
Well, it's a treaty of like all of the big superpowers, and the treaty goes that they'll use it for scientific purposes. But if you dig down into it, it's like citizens can visit Antarctica, but only like 2 miles into the coast.
Oh, but because I imagine there's a lot of natural resources there, so I would think, it's probably worth fighting a war over at some point.
Well, one would think so. Of course, the conspiracy people, which our show caters to, there are 3 general answers for why you can't. One is that they don't want you to see the ice wall, which, the other
ice wall in Antarctica.
Yeah, that Antarctica, that the Earth is flat, and Antarctica is an ice wall around the edge. Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. They don't want you to see the ice wall. The other is they don't want you to get to the center and see the entrance to the hollow Earth.
Right.
And the other one is that's where the watchers from the Bible are kept. So they want you there either. All 3 of which are very interesting. Then.
So those are certainly interesting theories. I, in general, I think, for when it comes to this kind of stuff, I think all, let's say, myths or rumors or stories or conspiracies or whatever, like they all have a grain of truth to them.
Yes.
So, kind of like I was saying before, like there's probably something worth exploring in Antarctica. Let's put it that way. So who knows, whatever it might be, this is, I think, the largest landmass on the planet, right? Is Antarctica. So certainly there's quite a lot to be found there.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, no one as far as we know. So there's actually, I also heard a conspiracy some time ago that the Nazis went to Antarctica, and there was some kind of exploration that happened in 1960 or 1970, some operation, if I recall.
Yes.
Secret CIA operation where they went down there. And they found, some kind of evidence of UFO or something like that. So, there's a lot of conspiracies to do with Antarctica. And,
I think the Nazis 100% went to Antarctica and were trying to build a base there for some reason.
Right.
The conventional answer was just to launch U-boats at South America, as I think what the idea was. Mm-hmm. But, of course, all conspiracy theories have some element of esoteric Hitlerism in it.
Right.
Sort of spice it up a bit. But yeah, so I wanted to talk with an expert about, because I got into crypto a while ago with Bitcoin and all this stuff, but I was never really deep into it. And I fell out of it for a while because it gets complicated, and then you get depressed when all your money goes away.
That happens a lot.
And then, but it always comes back. You just got to wait,
Right.
you know. But so, how did you get into crypto, and what sort of started it for you?
That is a good question. I mean, a lot of people say like they get into crypto for the tech, or they get. But I mean, I never really got into it for the tech. I just wanted the money, man. I was looking, so it was like 2016, and I was just kind of looking at ways to get money because I was just working at my shitty job, and I was like, man, I'm trying to get rich. Like this isn't cutting it.
Right.
So I was looking at a bunch of different things. I was looking at flipping things on eBay. I was looking at flea markets. I was doing several different kinds of businesses. I was doing like web design stuff, and then I stumbled on crypto. And long story short, like I started investing in it. I realized that I could turn that into, I could turn a little bit of money into a lot. And then 2017 happened. I started trading a lot more seriously at that point because I started making a lot more money than I thought was possible. And one thing led to another, and it's like, it's been a few years now, and yeah, I've been doing pretty much crypto. I've been crypto full time since 2017. I quit, and I mean, you could say that I'm retired. I do a lot of different things now that I just kind of find fun. I run different businesses that I enjoy. I wrote a book. I pretty much travel the world. I do lots of different fun things.
Nice. So
and I have to thank crypto for all of that. That was kind of the thing that allowed me to live the life that I currently lead now.
Yeah. So you're basically a full-time crypto trader.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
Crypto trader, and then mostly investing these days. So I have a little bit of a longer time horizon now because it's a lot easier than trading. Trading is certainly more difficult because it's a lot more short term.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a very patient individual. So if I can use that as a skill, then
nice.
Benefits me.
So yeah. So I guess my interest in crypto has been the possibility of personal freedom and escaping sort of the system of censorship and financial control and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was looking into Urbit, because Urbit bills itself as basically the second internet, a decentralized internet.
Right.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, so I would say that that's pretty accurate. And I think in general too, so I think probably it would benefit your audience to get the broad strokes before we kind of go into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah.
I think in general, like what we're seeing in the internet, and especially in all of these tech communities, is there's like almost this weird like siloing effect where like you have almost two different communities now, which is the mainstream internet folks, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then like there's almost like these splinter communities that are starting to appear. And these splinter communities are often more of a reaction to like a lot of the censorship that is happening on all of these main platforms. So we're talking about like BitChute, we're talking about Parler. Mm-hmm, everyone kind of has like alternative forms of the mainstream media. So like instead of YouTube, now we got BitChute instead of Patreon. I don't know what the Patreon equivalent is, but there's like an equivalent of Patreon now where you can support, let's say, conservatives or right-wing people, or even people who are interested in like free speech, right? Like,
right.
You can, a lot of people who are like self-proclaimed like centrists or independents have been shut down. Right. Oftentimes on like Twitter and these places. And so we're seeing this as a reaction. And Urbit was made by a guy called I think it was Menicus Moldbug.
Yeah,
Moldbug, and he was pretty. Yeah, he's like super well known in like the. I think he's an esotericarian as well.
Well, he's actually a Jew.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's actually Jewish. He's not pro-Hitler, as neither am I.
So I never looked into his political side. I just knew that he wasn't really well liked by the establishment. That's all I know.
He was I would say he was the foremost figure in the intellectual dark web in the early tens and then in the late aughts.
Okay,
So
so
he
okay, so you might know more about him than I do, because I never looked into it like specifically his political leanings. I just knew like, oh,
Yeah.
this guy was like pretty like well known back then.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was this designing basically the internet from the ground up again. I just knew him
Yeah,
from his
okay, so
political writings.
we're like on yeah, we're on like the opposite sides of the coin here then.
Yeah, so you knew him from only his work on Urbit, and I knew him from only his work on like writing about the cathedral and the ways of political control. And
Right.
in hindsight, it's clear that he was making Urbit in part as an answer to that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it makes
Yeah.
sense, right? When you think about it, like it makes sense that this kind of individual would be very interested in really like making something that's censorship resistant, and that's what Urbit is, and that's really like I see Urbit as the most advanced form of that, and as it's slowly being built out now compared to a lot of these other platforms. Because the problem is, with the platforms that you have like today, you can have like Parler or whatever. It's like it's not really decentralized. You're still kind of using HTTP protocol, for example.
It's just,
It's
just Twitter owned by somebody else.
Exactly, and it's
It has
like
all the same
all
problems.
we're doing,
Yeah,
it's like all we're doing is trusting someone else. It's like,
someone else that can be bought off, right?
Exactly.
Right. That's the trouble. And so Urbit claims, and this is I've been trying all week to get on it, and I got it downloaded, and I got a comment, right, and that was fine. I got some Urbit IDs, and that took a while because I get on there, and then it's like you gotta message some guy named Coin Yeezy, and then I message Coin Yeezy, and he doesn't respond for a while. He's like, "Oh, message Anthony," and then I have to send him some Bitcoin, but my wallet is an old wallet and doesn't take SegWit, and so then it's this whole thing,
right.
But I think I'm near getting on it. So I haven't had direct experience of it, but the idea is, what if you had an internet with I think I'm describing correctly, no centralized servers or single choke points where someone could cut off something because they don't like it.
Exactly. Okay, kind of, right? So there's like several different concepts of like how we can decentralize things and different theories on hierarchy. So the hierarchy that we are most used to is the one where it's centralized, right? So like YouTube, they own all the servers. You connect to YouTube, and if YouTube wants to shut you down, they shut you down, and you're SOL. So that's like the one we're most used to. The one that this is not Urbit, but this is more like Ethereum, where it's like this is complete decentralization, where anyone could anyone can spin up a node, anyone can basically be their own node. You can contribute to Ethereum however you want. You can code for it, whatever. As long as you have some Ethereum, you are equal. Your vote has like the same amount of power as anyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like true decentralization, where like the hierarchy is completely horizontal. Urbit, on the other hand, it's actually like it's a mix of the two. So it's a federation. So it's a federated internet. So what does that mean? So that means it takes the best aspects of both, because sometimes you're okay with trusting your friend, for example, if he makes like a server. Hey, I made a server for like what? Well, we put all of our like pictures of us going to, our memories. We made the server where you can check these pictures out. It's like, cool. I trust you enough with that, right? Like,
right.
We're not going to have any problems with that. If you want to boot me off, okay, well, I lost my photos.
it's like the idea is it's some guy
Right, exactly.
Right.
So let's say YouTube can exist on Urbit. They can move their entire infrastructure over to Urbit, and then they can have their YouTube Urbit, and you can connect to YouTube Urbit. The thing is let's say YouTube decides they don't like you, so they can boot you off, and it's like, well, that's fine, because there's 256 other galaxies, and in those other galaxies, and we say galaxies, so one galaxy is like let's say one internet. So instead of the internet we have today, all of a sudden we have like 300 internets. So it's like, okay, well, I got booted off the one. That's okay. I'll just go to the other one, and the other one can have different features depending on what it is that I'm looking for. So maybe this one is like, okay, well, this is like the mainstream internet. That's cool. I can connect to this one, no problem. And if I don't like it, I can always connect to this other internet. So that's like a federation. So you get to really pick and choose at any time, this is completely dynamic. At any time, what services you want to connect to, who you want to connect to, what servers you want to speak to, or so now it's going to the Ethereum side. It's like it is completely decentralized. You can do it yourself. So it's like, okay, well, that's fine. I want to make my own server for whatever it is that I want to do. I want to make my own like Twitter. That's fine. On Urbit, you can code up Twitter in like an afternoon, and then you can have your own Twitter, and you can have people connect to you. And if you do a good job, then people will, hopefully join you and grow your network. And if you suck, then that's fine, because they'll go join someone else's. So It makes it very, very simple and very, very easy. And it makes it basically impossible to be deplatformed.
Right, which is the major selling point for me, as someone that tends to get deplatformed. But but so is it? So this I've heard this talking point a lot. Like the code is so simple that you can code up Twitter in an afternoon.
Right.
And my understanding is that, well, the internet we have now is a giant patchwork.
Yes.
It's like, because it was never meant to do all these things, and they just sort of, so you've got APIs on top of APIs and all these different layers and and so it makes it very complicated.
Right.
But the idea is that with this, it's got this all built in from the beginning. So is it
Correct.
actually that easy to build your own programs?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of think about this as like, how to put this? I think Mendicus himself said this, and what he said was, if you have two options of building something, and one is like fast and cheap and efficient, and you can get it done tomorrow, and one is really hard and complex, and it'll take you 10 years and really expensive, which one are you going to choose? Well, you're going to choose the first one.
Right.
So you choose the first one, and it works for 80-90% of your uses. The problem is it doesn't work for everything. It has its own problems. There's technical debt involved, and it's not necessarily a perfect system. And so like Urbit, what Urbit tries to do is he's like, well, I think he started it back in 2002. He's been
working on this for a while.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, well, I'm just going to be the guy who takes this and does it perfectly, and like, so we don't need to like worry about this anymore. So, right. Another really good analogy is like, you look at computers these days compared to computers these days is a perfect analogy. So computers have like what they have a GPU, you have your CPU, you have your RAM, you have all of these modular drives. You put all of these together, and then they all function to create your computer.
Right.
But actually how phones work is everything is on a single chip. It's called an ARM. Basically like an integrated circuit. Everything functions on this single board. So the board manages the memory, it manages the CPU usage, it manages all these other things. And it's actually much, much more efficient than a computer. So a computer actually has to deal with a lot of slowdown and lag and interface issues, because sometimes they're sending information that it's basically like sending information into the dark. They don't really know, like, well, I have to render this screen, but I have to send that information to the GPU, but I don't know what GPU is in my system. I don't know if I'm going to have a GTX 1070 or an RTX 3090 or whatever. Who knows? I have no idea. Maybe it's an integrated circuit. Who knows? Whereas an actual ARM, like on a phone, exactly, as a developer, exactly what you're working with, the limits of the design, and that allows you to be a lot more efficient with what you build. So taking that to Urbit now, it's like, well, the internet we have now is, well, we need an API for Twitter, so let's plug in this graphic card here, essentially, like you can think of the analogy or the metaphor. We need to have like live price feeds for whatever, so like let's plug in this sound card here. And you're doing all this plugging in, when it would actually be a lot more simple just to have an ARM. It would be a lot easier to have a system on a chip. It would be a lot easier to have all of this stuff built in and working from the get-go from scratch. And so that's essentially what Urbit is.
Right. And my understanding is that the idea was, well, we'll just sort of treat the existing internet as a commodity. And the Urbit code will just have the call functions and whatever, and they will just It was. I believe the phrase was like a pure function or pure. Like it didn't need to worry about how it was processed. You just because it's a virtual running on top of it, so you just ship that off to what's underneath it. That may be nonsense. What I just said. But there was something.
Yeah,
like,
you can do that. Yeah, you can definitely do it that way. So in terms of Urbit itself, as of yet, is not compatible with the internet, but it will be. So you will definitely be able to plug into all of your existing applications, so Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. You will be able to plug into all of that from Urbit. The only difference is, now you're managing your Urbit, and so you're kind of doing this. What you're doing is you're making the transition process very easy for people. Because where it's like, I'm, let's say I'm, Joe Schmo. I don't know what the hell Urbit is. I don't really care about it. I just, I like using the Facebook.
I will say getting on right now is not for the newbie.
Yeah, it's hell.
Like I said,
yeah, exactly.
Anything where you gotta message a guy named Coin Yeezy is not for most people. Though I will say Coin Yeezy's been very helpful. Seems like a nice guy.
It's completely. It's still very, very early. It's kind of like Bitcoin was back in 2008. Like
it's also like the internet was back in 93 or whatever.
Yeah, it's just this weird like arcane thing that no one, I mean, it's understandable, but it's like, I'm not going to tell my grandma to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
So
right, and I'm like I said, I was trying to get my Urbit ID, and your Urbit ID is basically like your IP address that you own.
Yes.
Which is cool because like right now you don't own your IP address, right?
Exactly.
But if you have and the Urbit ID is linked to the Ethereum blockchain, so as long as you have your keys, you have your IP address forever, and you can't be taken off of it.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is also really useful. So this is generally is it PKI? Yeah, public key. I think it's public key in infrastructure or public key interface. So basically what this means is, and this has existed since the Linux days, it's only now becoming a lot more advanced with Urbit, but what you can do is, this is a way to verifiably prove who you are. So if you, let's say you and me are talking and I'm like, well, this is my IP address. And you're like, all right, cool. Or this is my Urbit ID in this case. You're cool. You're like, cool, I'll put this in my list. I'll remember this for later. If 10 years down the line, I want to send you a message and we can't necessarily talk to each other for whatever reason, you can always like set to like listen and look and see what my IP is doing. And if I ever send a message from there, you can know that it's from me because I own those keys. You can know that 100% it's mine. Sorry, I had a phone call there. Yeah. You know for 100% that it's me and my information and my message. So you can trust that.
Right. Yeah. And it's that, it gives you, this is the thing I tell people, if you want to be free in the world, it comes with the cost of responsibility. Like right now, like with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's a perfect example. Like if someone steals my funds out of a bank, like if I am stupid and get my credit card number stolen, they will put holds on the account and they'll, to some extent, refund your money. But if you lose your Bitcoin keys, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no way to get it back.
there's no one holding your hand, but it comes at with the advantage of tremendous amounts of freedom about how you spend the money and what you do with it. And Urbit is sort of like that too. Like you can, your IP address is yours, and as long as you have the keys, you can do whatever you want with it. But also you have to, manage it and keep up with it and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, you can even think about that. And honestly, I think this is going to be, as we move forward, something that is going to be increasingly more relevant and even necessary, because we're entering a world where deep fakes are starting to become really, really hard to spot.
This is so true. We even talked about this on the show. Deep fakes have gotten creepily good.
Exactly. And think about the timeline. No one was talking about deepfakes a year and a half ago was really when people started talking about them, and they were kind of like shitty. And already they're getting really, really good. Yes. And people are like having fun with them and making memes with them now. And it's like, it's only been like a year and a half, 2 years, maybe. Where are we going to be in 2 years from now? Maybe not even. Maybe like in 6 months, someone makes like a perfect deepfake. And it's like, how the hell at that, like, if you can't trust video, you can't trust audio, you can't trust images oftentimes because they're photoshopped. You can't really trust the media. So like, trust is becoming increasingly rare in today's day and age. And it's like, how do you assign trust? And it's like, you can do it by verifiably proving people's identity. If Trump decides he wants to like send a message to the world today, he has to go on like C-SPAN or something, or on TV, and they'll record footage of him and he'll say that message and people will believe that message. Well, what if in the future people are just making deep fakes? Well, how do we do, we have to assign in this way, like in the future, I imagine we'll have some sort of system to verifiably prove that Donald Trump is giving a message. So he'll go on Urbit or wherever and he'll say like, this is my public key. Everyone already knows this is my public key because I gave it out to the public, when I got inaugurated or whatever. And so now that every message that comes with this public key is not faked. This is a true message. This is really from me. And you can apply that to video. You can apply that to images. You can apply that to everything else. As long as it has the correct keys, you can verifiably prove who it's coming from and that it is real.
Yeah, and that's sort of, when you think about it, that's sort of the real currency here. That the currency proposition of Bitcoin and Urbit is basically trust. It's like verifiable who you're talking to. You can, that's really the value sort of being offered.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. With Urbit, it's definitely kind of a web of trust thing. And this is, again, we've had things like PGP keys for decades, but they've been very esoteric. They've been hard for people to understand. They've been complex. And like the whole mission of Urbit is like, not only are we going to do all of these different things, we're going to rebuild the internet, we're going to give everyone their nodes, their computers, their own servers, and we're giving everyone a simple public key interface, but we're going to make all of that easy for the average person to kind of understand and onboard and get used to, right?
Right. So what is it like using, because like I said, I haven't really got onto it yet. How is it like using Urbit now? Do you use it often or do you use it?
So I used it a few months ago, just kind of testing around and fooling around with it. It's extremely early, I would say.
Sure.
It's fun. It's fun to use. I mean, once you connect to Urbit, you kind of realize like, oh, wow, like, I'm back to 1990, like you said, 1995 internet or whatever. It's like,
yeah, when the internet was fun and not like 5 websites.
Exactly. And it's like, now I own all of my information. I own all of my images. If I want to send someone an image, it's like, I am literally sending them an image. I'm not sending Discord an image and then they are forwarding it to them or whoever, or Skype, and then Skype is forwarding it to them. It's like, no, I'm sending them this information. Our nodes are talking. Like, right, that's cool.
Peer to peer. Like, yeah, because you think about like Instagram, take Instagram. It's a very simple program. It's like a list of HTML links to images.
Right.
That's sort of all it is. But that list is owned by Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. Right. So my list of images and my friend's list of images are all owned by Mark Zuckerberg, and he controls how that list is manipulated and shown. But there's no reason in principle I couldn't control my list of images and you control your list of images, and we share as we will.
Exactly.
Right. So
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very simple. I mean, at the end of the day, if it and hopefully this is what happens, right? Like, it boils down to, it's something as simple as using Instagram. Like, here's a value proposition. Do you want to use Instagram where you're absolutely free to, first of all, it's going to be much faster. Secondly, you're free to own your information and revoke it at any time. Or do you want to use the Instagram that's not only is it slower, but Zuckbot owns all of your DMs and all of your data, and you have no say in it, and he gets to use it to whatever, for whatever ends, or devious intents he may have. It's like, well, obviously, like, it's, the choice is simple.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's just there's that, and it's also that the internet has become not fun because it has been so centralized. Like I said, back in the early days, there were all these different websites and communities and all these things you could find, and now it's like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, even YouTube itself. Like, do you I'm sure you remember this. Like, do you remember like 2007 YouTube and like before? Like,
yeah,
in that, like, it was so cool because it was so brand new and unique and interesting, and no one knew what the hell it was going to turn into. And so like the type of videos and content that people were making was so like we had like Lonely Girl 115. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so for people who are listening who don't remember or maybe don't know, Lonely Girl 115 was this account of this girl who was basically just doing vlogs, and she was just like talking about her life. And like as kind of the video series went on, like creepy things started happening, and really, really strange things started happening to Lonely Girl 115, and people actually got super, super invested in it, to the point where they were like, "Oh my God, is she kidnapped? What happened to her? What's going on?" Almost like the Marina Joyce incident we had some years ago. But as it turns out, this was like just an art project by some like college kids, and so it's like that's so cool. Like, but you know, in the YouTube environment, like you would never really see anything like that because it's too artsy, it's too out there for people really to get. Like nowadays, it's just like, you know, people are just watching whatever gets recommended to them by the algorithm. You know, and I'm guilty of this too, right?
The algorithm controls your perceived reality. And it's not even, it doesn't even have to be nefarious. It's just like there's all this information, like I say, they own these lists, and they have to decide from amongst all these lists what you would like to see. And that will always have some degree of bias, whether it's political or whatever, or just monetarily driven. Right. And so you get this, no matter what, you're getting this curated feed of stuff that just all bottlenecks toward one generic thing and generic format. Like everyone has a YouTube face. You know, like every all the YouTube thumbnails are the same picture. It's some guy or girl making the same face.
Yeah.
Bubble letters. And it just all turns into the same.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people are like not. Oh man, this is such a powerful point you just made. But it's like it's so true, right? It's like YouTube. If you end up just following the algorithm, eventually it'll start feeding into itself. And I think that's what's already happening. Where it's like
masturbatory.
Exactly.
It just is a circle. It's like presents you the same thing month after month, but it's just getting worse.
Yeah, and it's like and it just eventually becomes like a derivative of a derivative of a derivative, and it's just like a copy without an original.
Like it's like I'm going to do a 24-hour challenge of me doing 24-hour challenges. And it's like,
and I bet, as stupid as that sounds, if you did that, you would get a lot of views.
I know.
Like that just the title sounds ridiculous enough that people would watch it, and it's like, and honestly, like as much time as people spend on YouTube, and I try not to spend too much time on YouTube. Yeah. Ultimately, I probably spend too much, maybe like 2 hours a day or something. Mm-hmm. You have to, you know, if you ask yourself at the end of the day, or if you ask other people, it's like, do you actually like gain anything from what you're watching? Like not like, let's even set aside entertainment, because for some people it's not even entertaining. They just do it to like waste time. But it's like, do you remember what you watched? Like, do you actually like, did you gain any insight or knowledge, or did you enrich your life in some way? And it's like oftentimes, and I'll even ask myself this question, and this is why I don't spend too much time on YouTube, or try not to. It's like, no, because I could sit here watching like informational YouTube videos, and those are so fun in the moment to watch, where it's like, you know, learn about you know, how this like really particular YouTuber had some kind of drama happen or something. And it's like, yeah, it's really fun to watch for like 10 minutes, and then I'll forget it by the next day. And it's like, what did I gain? Nothing. What did I lose? Like 15 minutes of my life. It's gone.
Right. Yeah, the creativity gets sucked out of it because it's this algorithmically based. It drives everything to the same endpoint, you know?
Yeah.
And all of the internet has become that. And so even you're like, everyone thinks they're in this niche or this subculture. Like let's take supposedly right-wing people, right? If you go on YouTube, it will serve you more videos of people saying the same thing.
Right.
And or if you're on left-wing YouTube, it will like, they'll be like, here's things about why this is racist. And then it'll say, we recommend to you this other person saying these other things are racist also. And then,
yeah, exactly.
So
it's kind of like,
yeah,
it's kind of like the news, you know. I was actually I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this maybe 6 months ago. I was kind of mulling it over in my mind, in terms of like how capitalism as a system works. And like I realized like capitalism, it's really good for a lot of things, but there's a few things that it's not good for. And one of those things that it's not good for is news, because in general, if you stick a dollar at the end of it, you're gonna cater, and so news is not for catering. News is the place where you don't want catering, but news is exactly what it, because it's put in a capitalist system. They're driven by the dollar. They want to be profitable. They have to cater to you in a way. So it's like, you're not going to pay a news publication that serves you information or news biased against what you believe in. That just wouldn't, they wouldn't be profitable for them. You wouldn't buy into that. Right. Or most people wouldn't. Some people will. I generally like, personally, I do like to try to watch CNN and Fox and like all the other different ones just to see, because they're all biased. So if you watch them all, you can kind of put together. But not most people aren't like that. And it's not profitable for them to do so. So news is kind of the one place, and it's like YouTube is the same thing, right? Where it's like, if you look up, left-wing conspiracies or right-wing conspiracies or left-wing whatever, or biased this way or that, like you'll just go further and further down that hole until like you end up, becoming an extremist in that direction.
Yeah, and I think people, like the world is getting more polarized, and it's not, I don't think because people are getting necessarily worse, but that their information well is poisoned.
Right.
And like because you go there and you think, oh, I'm having these interesting, unique thoughts that people don't have. But actually, capitalism is so good at what it does, it actually has figured out how to sell you your identity.
I like that.
It's just here's these manufactured identities that you can purchase. And we'll have these entertainers that will cater to it, and they'll sell you merchandise, and you'll have these buzzwords for you, and you have buzzwords for you, and you two can fight, and then that will be part of your identity, is hating the other person. And it's not even, I don't even know that anybody planned it. It just sort of evolved from this algorithm, of like
right. It evolved from the algorithm, and it evolved from capitalism. It's almost like this is like the final or like we're careening to like some weird final ultimate end state of capitalism, where it's like everyone gets everything catered to them because they're willing to pay for it. And it's like, that's not what life is about. It's like, life is not about comfort and being happy all the time and getting everything your way and feeding into your body. Like, that's not life. Life ultimately is about discomfort, and it's about challenge, and it's about hardship and struggle. And it's like, the more we move away from that, the weaker we become as a race, as a species, certainly, as people. And it's like, we can't shy away from that. We can't shy away from those hard discussions. And that's exactly where I think capitalism and by the way, I wanted to make a quick point on this. A lot of people in the West, I think almost no one here who's going to be listening to this knows how bad TikTok is in China.
Oh, yeah. Really?
So yeah, so it used to be called, used to be called Douyin, which I had this really cute little, this Chinese girl that was like, Douyin. It's really, really nice sound effect. I love it. Yeah. But like what they did is, so China's basically trying to take over the world with these algorithms, essentially, that we've just been talking about. And on TikTok, it's like the strongest, like most lethal possible algorithm. If you download TikTok, within about 10 minutes of you liking and disliking videos, it like records all of your information, all of your data, all of your likes and dislikes, and then it starts suggesting you things after about 10 minutes. Like, you can't look away. Like, it's so interesting. And it's like, it's not actually interesting. It's just catered to you.
It's designed like a casino.
Yeah.
The internet has been designed. The internet has been turned into a casino where it just tries to addict you to itself.
Yes.
And it's that's what I'm hoping Urbit solves, is that, like, because the financial incentives won't be there, I hope, for this to happen. Because like, you look around, I know it's a cliched point, but you look down the street and everyone is looking at their phone. And it's like everyone is an addict. Like because they've got these bright colors and it's streaming constantly. It's constant dopamine. It's designed to addict you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I wouldn't say everyone's an addict. I would say everyone's a target. in a way. Because when I go outside and I see people like, you know, face down on their phones, I'm like, yeah, I could just like walk over and like steal that guy's wallet or something.
Yeah.
It's like there's no awareness. It's like living the real world, man. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: is TikTok? I've heard also that TikTok. You know, there's that thing on TikTok where like everyone will sing the same song. In there, like there'll be some song that'll be a meme, and they'll all sing it.
Oh yeah. Like it gets like starts trending, and then everyone starts making videos of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that being used to like train deep fake algorithms? Because it's like here's all these different faces saying the same.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's
No,
really...
no. 100%. Yeah. No. This is all the whole point of all of these like super huge like media tech companies is to get your data.
Yes.
So what that actually meant like 5 years ago, and this is what people like still kind of, because it moves so quickly, you have no idea. Like what people thought 5 years ago, stealing your data meant like, oh, it means like, you know, they can look into your DMs and they have your pictures. And it's like, yeah, that's what it means, but that's not what it means today. What it means today is literally every single piece of input that you do on a computer, every hand gesture you do on a phone, every message and words and intonations that you use. Even this discussion that we're having right now is going to be downloaded into the server, and it's going to take all of this information and create a neural net out of it to make this massive sprawling thing that not even the Google engineers know how the hell it works at this point. They just know how to set the initial parameters of how it learns. And then the learning process is done just by the code itself. So even if you get the top paid Google engineers on it, they looked at the code at this point, they'd be like, I have no idea how this works.
Yeah, we're basically
we're just feeding the machine.
We are building Skynet without realizing it.
Yes, 100%.
Which is not a good idea, I think.
Absolutely.
Or at least we ought to think about it, you know.
There's no thought about it at all. There's no thought process going into it. It's just like, yeah, you know, let's get the new iPhone because it's better. It's like 15% faster, and it has the shiny new screen, and it's like.
And the rise of the machines, I think, will not be like the Terminator, where it'll be robots walking around shooting you, so much as, although maybe. I mean, if you look at Boston Dynamics,
who knows? Yeah, I wouldn't be so sure, man. You never know, because I mean, it's getting scary.
But what's even on some level more frightening is that it is the rise of the machines is a thing that controls all of the information inputs that come into your brain through the screen to tell, because if people given the same information, people will tend toward the same conclusions. So if you can do this, you can control what people will conclude about the world.
100%.
And the algorithm will do this basically to just increase your consumption, I think, or something else.
Yeah, increase engagement.
Yeah, until you're just in a VR headset with your brain in the Matrix or whatever.
Yeah.
And
if people don't think that this is happening, or this will happen, actually, like it is happening now. Think about yourself and your life. And I use myself as an example too, because I'm a human. I'm weak to this stuff as well. It's like, how much time do you spend on YouTube? How much time do you spend on, honestly pointless, meaningless activities that don't really enrich your life in any way? It's like the number now for me is a number that is higher than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And the number that it was 5 years ago is a number that is higher than it was 5 years before that.
Yes. I mean,
there's going to be like this final state where people who are just weak and susceptible, particularly to this stuff, are just going to be just drones on their computers all day, 100% of the time, which some people are already there.
I mean, people are already there. I mean, the iPhone has a screen time thing. And there was this one lady that I was talking to, and I was like, let me see how long you've been on the thing. And it was like 10 hours that day.
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane. She'd just been on her phone because, she had this job where she didn't have to pay attention that much. She just had to answer the phone. And she'd just been, the phone had been, it's just been programmed. It knew what she would respond to. And the algorithm was feeding that back to her to just be there.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's scary. And then you look at, have you seen that famous photo of Zuckerberg walking down the aisle with everyone with their VR headsets on their faces?
I haven't, but I can imagine it perfectly.
I'm not getting a VR. That's just one of my lines in the sand.
Likewise.
Like, I'm just not doing that. because that's just the too much. But a lot of people are getting the VR, and a lot of people will. And there's just going to be a time when you're just going to have these people that are just stuck and that's going to be sooner than people think.
100%.
And so my hope with Urbit has been, can we get because I mean, computers are good, I think, on the whole as an idea, but can we get the good parts of the computers, like being able to network with people around the world and, store data and do these things that we need to do without having to, like, can I send an email without the NSA reading it and Google parsing for data to sell me an ad?
Exactly. And I think this goes even bigger than that. It's the internet and computing and, Urbit and Bitcoin and Ethereum. These are all great examples of what is happening, is that the internet has been co-opted by companies and individuals as a tool for control.
Yes.
But the reality is that the internet is a tool for freedom.
Yeah, that's what it was supposed to be, right?
Exactly. And I think that's what it will be in the end. I don't think these evil people who are trying to use this as a tool for control will ultimately win out in the day. I think what they have is like a pocket, a short period of time where they can kind of bend the rules a little bit and people will kind of fall for it. But eventually people are going to wake up and be like, oh, we don't have to take any of this. We can just do it ourselves. Because that's what the internet is. You are your own individual on the internet. There's nothing that separates you from me in terms of social status or legal status or anything. It's all democratized, and freedom of speech is like the most important thing that we have. And I think on the internet, it truly becomes like unstoppable. When in classical, in the meat space, it's easy to silence someone. On the internet, it's impossible to silence them, because if you try, look at what's happening. There's going to be a reaction. People are going to move to other platforms. People are going to create even more of a ruckus. There's going to be more of a spotlight on people. Like, look at Alex Jones, right? Alex Jones, he got deplatformed on Twitter. What do people talk about now? What are the most popular Joe Rogan podcasts? It's all the ones with Alex Jones. It's like, you try to silence anyone on the internet, you're only going to make it worse.
Right.
And that's the power of what it is.
Yeah. And so with Urbit, the source code is available to anybody. It's open source. And so that is an important feature, because like for something to be yours, you sort of have to be able to fix it. In the old days, you could have a car and you could fix your own car. But nowadays, like, you open the hood and there's it's mostly computers, and they've got a screw head that needs a proprietary screwdriver that you don't have. And all this stuff, because they want to hook you into their system.
Right.
And the internet has become that too, where like, well, you want to do this, you got to go through this, you got to use our API or whatever. And if Urbit can deliver us a thing where we can, like, here's the programs I run, and it's clear enough and simple enough and not proprietary, which is the big thing, that I can actually work on it myself, then that, because if you depend on someone else to keep your thing running, that's a choke point. Yep,
100%. 100%. And this is the beauty of Urbit. It's taking all of this, and again, this is like, it's so funny, because only someone like Moldbug could have made it. Only someone with this kind of crossroads of like political inspiration as well as computer knowledge and a deep computer knowledge could have made something like this. Yes. And I think it's a testament to his dedication to it, that he was working on this for years and years and years, kind of in the dark. I mean, if we look at the most, this is kind of like the great man theory, right? Where it's like history is decided by a few great men or whatever. It's like, it's so strange when we think about Bitcoin itself, made in 2008, kind of as a reaction to what happened in that whole financial crisis. It's like, we attribute all of these things to Satoshi, the creator of Bitcoin, the mysterious creator. No one knows who he is.
What if it's Moldbug? What if he made all three?
Well, this is the crazy thing. Like, Moldbug was working on this in 2002, 6 years before. Like, isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Like that like is already attributing the level of genius that kind of he was already thinking about. And we have seen Bitcoin as a freedom of currency, freedom of money. It works.
It does work.
It really does. And it's like, what this is kind of like a proving or a testing ground for these other ideas that Moldbug is kind of pushing forward, where it's like, let's do this federated internet. Let's do this thing where it's like, everyone is free to join whoever they want or not, or it is completely open source. You can build whatever you want. You can connect to the apps you want. I think that is going to be one of the most impressive things that is going to happen in the next few years, and it's gonna kind of happen out of nowhere, because there's going to be a critical point where Urbit suddenly just becomes 10 times better than everything else, and it's not just gonna, and it's gonna happen like, just like that, like snap your fingers, like boom, all of a sudden Urbit's going to be way better than everything else, and everyone is just going to start moving.
Well, it's like I forget who said it. It was some famous guitarist. It may have been Van Zandt, but anyway, he was like, people claimed he was an overnight sensation. He said, "Yeah, I was an overnight sensation." He said, He said they didn't know I was an overnight sensation for the 9 years beforehand when I was practicing every night, and then all of a sudden I was an overnight sensation.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, but I try to encourage people to get on Bitcoin. I'm like, it does work, guys. It like, you can send money and stuff and and it's encrypted and no one knows, and you can just do it yourself. And
yeah, someone sent, how much did they send? They sent, I think it was $1 billion of Bitcoin about a week ago on the network. Yeah. And people kind of like were freaking out. They're like, oh my God, this is like one of the old wallets that has like however many thousands of Bitcoin or whatever. And it's like, do you know what the transaction fee for that $1 billion was? It was like $12. Like,
yeah. Like
that's
the transaction.
Like, try moving that from a bank. And
you'd have to have the mafia involved.
Exactly.
I mean, if you have 12 billion in American dollars, you've got people hooked into you with guns to your head.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like, if you have a bank account, people know how much money you have, which in itself is a problem if you have a lot of it.
Yeah, that is definitely, because the thing that I've learned, being someone who does a lot of travel and who lives basically exclusively off of my cryptocurrency, it's like the world is created in such a way to really cater to the mainstream individual. It's not catered to people like me. I'm almost like an active, agent against, everything in the system, because nothing in the system really is working towards me. So as an example, I was using my bank. I've been using my bank for the last 2 years or 3 years, however long. And I would deposit some money there from a license from Kraken, which is a licensed regulated crypto exchange in the UK. So it's not like some fly-by-night operation. These guys have been around for like 6, 7, 8 years. And they're regulated. They have the licenses and everything. And I deposited, I think, like 10 grand into my bank account. Well, the bank shut me down. And I'm like, well, why did you guys shut me down? They're like, well, we're doing this mostly as an anti-laundering measure, or anti-money laundering measure. And we need to, we're going to shut your account down. Where would you like us to send your money to? And I'm like, well, I had to send it to a different account. So I started looking around for, talking to different banks and all of that. And, they were asking like, where do you get your money from? And I'm like, well, I've done crypto. And as soon as I mentioned that, they're like, no, we don't do any kind of like, for anti-money laundering reasons, we don't do that. You would need to have like a stipend, from a job and all of that. So basically what they were telling me is I need to launder money. Yeah. Give myself a job and pay myself a wage and launder the money in order to go to the bank for them to accept the fact that I'm not laundering money. So it's like,
I feel the same way. People are like, I feel like the system is not set up for me because people are like, can you get on this, the email? I'm like, hold on, I have to launch my other internet for a second. And people are like, what? And I just bear with me here. I got to get on the internet too. And then, it's this whole thing. And I know I can't use the phone to get there, So for, let's just talk about crypto for a moment. What is your favorite crypto? Are you a pure Bitcoin guy, BSV, ETH? What is your thing?
So yeah, so I'm definitely in the altcoin space, 100%. I
Really?
think altcoins really have been the way that I have, I have them to thank for my fortunes. Not only Bitcoin but altcoins in particular. So I know like the field. I'm
Right.
actually like the dev of an altcoin myself.
Oh,
So
really?
I've been investing in like probably hundreds at this point of different kind of altcoins. So I know how everything works. I definitely think so. This is like let's say like not financial advice, but just suggestion I would say for people to kind of look into themselves and do their own research. Some popular cryptocurrencies that I know are like 100% legitimate and safe. Ethereum,
Right.
Bitcoin, obviously, Litecoin if you want an alternative to Bitcoin, and these coins like that. If you stay with the larger ones, you're generally going to be having a good time. I think Ethereum in particular is going to be a great hold, and I know people want to make money, so
Right.
this is obviously another thing that's great about it is we get to take a lot of the money out of the legacy system that is just like completely fake and meaningless and put it somewhere where it's actually being put to use. And I think Ethereum is definitely the platform for that, to where there's a lot of new projects and new people and new businesses that are starting up on this money that people are bringing in from the real world into Ethereum. And it's like now we're getting all of this technical development that otherwise wouldn't have existed, which is great.
Yeah.
So those are, I'm definitely a huge Ethereum bull. I definitely think like, if you're just trying to, for the audience members, if you're just getting into cryptocurrency, buy a little bit of Bitcoin. You can buy it off of the safest way to do it would obviously be through like sites like Coinbase and things like that. But if you don't trust them, which again, I would advise people to use Coinbase to kind of get their feet wet. And once they kind of familiarize themselves with it, get the hell off Coinbase because it's just as bad as any other, intermediary.
Yeah, you don't want to have a centralized thing organizing your decentralized currency.
Exactly. So Coinbase is a great on-ramp, but get off it as soon as you can. Make your own wallet, buy a Trezor or a hardware wallet or a ledger, and own your keys. And if you own your keys, you own your money. It's yours. It'll never leave you. You can do what you want with it. Give it to your kids. There's a lot of freedom that comes with it, and no one is going to ask you a question. You don't have to sign out any forms. Your Bitcoin's not going to get shut down. So that's the great thing about it.
Yeah, the only one I haven't lost money on cryptocurrency. The only one I ever made money off of was when Ripple went up for a little bit, and I happened to sell it when it was at its peak, and then it just never went up again.
Nice, nicely done. You made some poor unfortunate sap unhappy that day.
Yeah.
Well, that's how the markets are, and the nice thing about crypto too, it's like these are really like you really see the truth of the markets. They're extremely honest in that way, which is completely unlike most other legacy markets that always have like some kind of insider information or edge. It's like in crypto that still exists, but it's so much less. It's so much more of a playing field than it is like, oh, let's wait for the government to like confirm this like release of this token or this security on the stock market after like a million other insiders have bought in, and like the VCs and the angels and these other guys are like 100x their money. It's like now you can buy.
Yeah. Like now you can buy, now that we've made the $1 billion.
Exactly.
So one question I was going to ask you, because Coin Yeezy, in my discussions with him while I was trying to figure out how to get a planet, he was of the opinion that Bitcoin, he said Bitcoin is great and he uses cryptos, he said, but his worry was that there is a choke point, or it's not decentralized truly because there's some team that does the coding of the, like the Bitcoin code.
Oh, so Blockstream.
You're right. So there's some guy, there's a team that does the Blockstream, and his view was that he feared that group of any cryptocurrency had the potential to become like a Federal Reserve sort of entity. Is that a problem?
It is and it's not. So it is in the way that there is one basically centralized developer for Bitcoin. Although anyone can develop for Bitcoin, you can develop for it, I can develop for it. Ultimately, there is these individuals who have to accept the changes you want to make. And that is the point of centralization. There are points of centralization in Bitcoin in terms of nodes, who owns all of the hash power. There's a lot of hash power in China. So I'm not going to paint it pretty and say like, it's completely perfect. I will give you the honest take here. There's a lot of hash power in China, which means much of China owns Bitcoin. But here's a great thing about Bitcoin. Once people get on Bitcoin and once people are already, let's say, familiarized with crypto, it's one easy step for them to move to Ethereum. It's one easy step for them to move to Bitcoin Cash. It's one easy step for them to move to Bitcoin SV. It's one easy step for them to fork Bitcoin and make their own. So if it ever does become a problem, it's like, cool, we'll just go and do our own thing. We don't care,
Right, that's true.
It's so that's kind of the great thing about it. So I see it as like potentially it could be hazardous, but it's a hazard that is very, very easy to overcome. It's very easy to solve. It's completely, it's not like some bloody revolution. It's just like, hey, we'll just use this network instead of that network. Easy enough.
Yeah, because like if you're, it's actually like the equivalent would be in the United States, making your own currency is illegal and they'll come shoot you.
Right.
But in the crypto space, if Bitcoin were to become corrupted by like say a 51%, attack or whatever, or the people doing, got corrupt, they're changing the code around and people accepted it for some reason and China took it over or whatever, you could just make another one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or just
100%.
jump to one of the thousands that are already there. You said you're developing one yourself, right?
Yeah.
Which one is?
I'm developing an altcoin. It's not trying to do what Bitcoin does. My altcoin is it's a lot smaller. It's more niche. We're just trying to do some basically like a project. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make it trading easier for people to trade in a decentralized way. So without having to use intermediary parties, so that people can buy and sell cryptocurrencies directly between themselves, so peer-to-peer, which is nice. So that's what I'm doing. But you mentioned something that was really interesting, which was the 51% thing, right? So there's a lot of worry that people have when it comes to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is managed by the hash power. Whoever owns the hash power essentially owns the network.
Right.
And the worry that people have is like, well, couldn't the government just get, like $50 billion and like, own like 51% of the hash power, then they own the network? And it's like, yeah, that's true. So imagine, first of all, the government sucks at everything. So, never trust centralized, never trust centralized. So they wouldn't even be able to do this. But let's say they do it magically. They have the engineers and the know-how and the talent to do it. They spend this 50 billion, 100 billion, however much dollars to get all of these servers and computers ready. And now they're ready to go. They're ready to turn them on, and they're ready to contribute hash power to Bitcoin. And if they contribute 51% or more, they can now make their own blocks, right? They now own the blocks. And it's like, and if they start doing that, what do you think is going to happen? You think people are just going to accept it? It's like, no, they'll be like, great. I'm glad you've spent $100 billion making, your own blocks. Well, we're just going to stick to our own Bitcoin over here that you're not transacting with. And it's like, you just wasted all of that money and time and effort.
Could you just fork it from the moment they did that? And then
100%. You can keep the entire history.
Point. Yeah.
So, it's like, all right, on 14th of November, 2020, the government started, making their own blocks in the blockchain. It's like, cool. We'll just take that moment in time. We'll take that block, we'll fork it, and we'll just work on it, do our own thing.
No one even lost any money. In fact, you may get you may get new money on top of old.
Exactly. Well, taxpayers lose money because the government sucks.
Right. But you don't use any of your crypto money.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you could just fork it instantly from the moment they took it over, and then it's like, well, that's great, but now we just made a copy.
Exactly. So now, that's the great thing about it, and it's all run by the community too. And so I don't want to confuse people and make them think like, oh, well, if anyone can make a copy, then what gives them any value? What gives it the value is the community support. So if the entire community decides like, yeah, no, we're not going to take any of this, we're just going to make our own fork, and then everyone moves to it, then it will have value. It's not so simple as just, this one guy in Italy, decided to fork Bitcoin and now it's worth something. It's like, no, that doesn't make it worth anything. What makes it worth is what people ascribe to it.
Right. Yeah, like the community aspect is really like that's what I'm hoping again for Urban, because like the whole point of Urban is we want to go back to an internet owned by the people and not giant things. So you have smaller communities like it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I think so many of our problems in society today are just problems of scale. Like we're not supposed to interact with thousands of people every day. You don't know how to do that. You know, all these nameless, faceless people, and you send out a tweet or a post and it's read by the globe and then people can attack you. Like that's just not how human beings relate to each other. It's too big of a
100%.
scale. And so if you can scale it down and it's community oriented again, it's sort of like that problem doesn't even exist.
Yeah, it goes away. Yeah. I mean, like how the best kind of human societies are the ones where it's a bunch of small communities. It's a village or it's a city or it's a township, right? Like, and this kind of splintering effect. I mean, you're even seeing this in America, right? Like you talk to an American, it's like they don't tell you. Well, a lot of people down south will tell you they're American, but usually they'll tell you, I'm from Nevada or I'm from Pennsylvania. They don't say I'm from America. They say I'm from this state. They have a lot more allegiance to their state, which is interesting. Because it tells you a little bit about human nature.
Well, because America's gotten so broad, it means nothing. It's like if it means everything, it means nothing.
Exactly.
And
so like there's this paring down where it's like, anyone, you said it yourself, like if some guy, you send out a tweet and some guy like decides he doesn't like you, he berates you. It's like, the only reason he's able to do that and have a guilty-free conscience is because he doesn't know you.
Right. And in his defense, I might be just a robot. He doesn't even know if I'm real. And I don't know if he's real. I may just be getting upset that someone got mad at me and he's not even a real person.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's just, and you made another great point where it's like, humans aren't really built for this kind of thing. It's completely new. And it's like, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but when you read anything on the internet, whether it's positive or negative, and especially negative things, you read them in your own voice.
Yes, yeah.
Like you read them as if you're saying it. And so it's like if you're reading these negative things, you're like internalizing, the badness. You're internalizing things that are external, and that's not, it's not conducive to a healthy life in the end.
That's such a good, because if you know the person saying it, then you actually do read it in their voice.
Exactly.
But if you don't have the voice, you just default to your own. And then it's like you telling the badness to yourself. And it's this weird psychological screw up that happens.
100%. Yeah, you're like short circuiting your brain into thinking that you're the one saying these terrible, horrible, and even if they're not, they're impersonal, right? They're things that are outside of you. And so you lose control of yourself in a way. You lose agency in a way. And it's like, turn off the computer, man. Shut off the phone. Shut off this podcast. Actually, no. Listen to the rest of this podcast. Then shut it off. Go for a walk. Go for a 15-minute walk. Enjoy yourself. Take a deep breath. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, we have to get the digital world back under control. It's gone too far.
Yes, it absolutely has.
And one more thing I wanted to ask you about was Twitch. Are you on Twitch at all?
So I've heard of Twitch. I am not using Twitch. So Twitch essentially is like a decentralized Twitter.
Right.
And I think it's interesting. But I think Twitch is kind of, again, it's another one of those things where it's like a reaction to the
it's just Twitter
to the problem of censorship. Right.
It's Twitter too, except now I do have a Twitch. And the thing about it, the Twitch is also, I don't understand how this works, but this is another interesting thing of they use BSV, which is I think it's Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They use so it's attached to a BSV wallet, and everything you do on it costs some amount of money.
Right.
But you also, it's strange. It's weird. But like I said hello the other day, and then I got $3.
Nice.
because people would like it or branch it, and then I got money if they interacted with something I did.
Right.
And so that was interesting, but then I'm down money because I talked more and people didn't like it. I don't understand what's going on. But
Yeah.
but here's the thing I wanted to ask you about, because they said, well, like I post an image, say on my Twitch stream, and then they said, well, that image is it's attached to the blockchain. How can the blockchain itself support data? I didn't think it could do that, or is it just they have a data and they're just linking it to it?
Oh no, it can support data. It absolutely can.
How does that work? Because if that's true, that makes the blockchain way more. It has way more possibilities than just currency.
Oh, it's extremely. This is the great thing about it. It's extremely powerful. It depends on the blockchain you're using in particular. Ethereum is the one where you can do like a lot of stuff on it, to the point where, well, you can't do video on it yet, but you can send images, you can send data through Ethereum. You can send data on Bitcoin as well, but it's limited. The only thing that limits it is the bandwidth of the block size. So the blocks are very small; they're like 10 megabytes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you want to really encode a full image inside of a block, it's going to cost you a pretty penny.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do it for sure. But Bitcoin was really the first blockchain, so it was never really like imagined as like, oh, we can do like data and like video and all this rich media and stuff. Like, no, it was just like, we'll just do money. So, and then we have like second generation blockchain, which is Ethereum, which is a much bigger block size.
Mm-hmm.
And their blockchain is like now just like absolutely massive and bloated, because there's like so much stuff going on there. But eventually we'll get like third generation blockchain, which is like Ethereum 2.0, which is going to be able to support a lot more. It's going to have a lot more bandwidth. You're going to be able to truly do a lot more things in a decentralized way, and such that you will really be able to share images and files and things like that on the blockchain directly, which is awesome.
Yeah, because that means that there doesn't have to be a central repository anywhere of data.
Exactly. You just connect to Ethereum, which is like,
sounds like a simple thing, but if you think about the implications of that, it opens up huge avenues of new technology possibilities.
Oh yeah, it's super cool. It's super interesting.
So that's what I was.
And we're just in the first innings.
Yeah, that was my main takeaway from using Twitch, was like, oh, I'm storing like media on the blockchain with this, and it's being converted. It's being talked about over the stream in the terms of like cents and like money. But the 2 cents I just spent was to make this post actually is a data stream, right? And so it's like this weird. It can't decide if it's money or data, and it's sort of the same.
Yeah, it is kind of
the same.
Well, yeah, maybe it is. It's like information theory, right? Or like everything in the universe is just data.
Yeah, so that concept itself, where data and money become synonymous, is interesting and also somewhat frightening, and I'm not quite sure what to make of it yet.
Yeah, my pay is not high enough to.
Yeah, because if you can store, if the medium on which you transmit data is the same as your currency, then that is interesting.
Well, yeah, because then it gives like a monetary value to all of the data.
Right, the data
directly.
Data has an intrinsic monetary value at that point, which means that you are basically you sort of entered this Gnostic realm of paying for information directly.
Yep.
Which I haven't worked out what that would mean yet.
It could be very good or very bad. So
yeah,
it certainly it wouldn't be neutral. Let's put it that way. It wouldn't be
neutral. I'm not sure. Someone else will have to. I think we'll just have to see how that plays out. But that was my thing with Twitch. I was like, oh, this is saying it's money, like, and it is money because I have in my Twitch account, because someone. I think I just checked it. I have $4 in my Twitch account and 3 cents, because someone basically retweeted something I posted, and that gave me like my money, right? But that, and I could take that out and convert it into American dollars, right? But also that is a media file that I had posted, and that those two things being synonymous is sort of a new horizon.
Oh yeah, 100%. We've never seen anything like it.
Yeah,
it'll be really interesting to see how this kind of thing evolves.
So no matter what, I'm convinced, especially because of that, realizing that the blockchain is definitely going somewhere.
Oh yeah, I mean, people are,
whether it's good or bad, I can't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. I mean, the experiments that people are running on crypto and blockchain now that money is like a video game to people on blockchain. The experiments that people are doing is just insane.
Well, it's more than just a technical thing at that point. It becomes a philosophical, like you've broached a philosophical thing of like making currency, unit of exchange, unit of account, and
knowledge
with data, and also making it flow so easily that it's basically liquid.
Yep.
Because it's exchangeable. So you've entered this new philosophical realm where like the definitions of all these things change.
Yep.
Anyway.
Maybe they'll change for the better, for the worse. Who knows?
Yeah, but
that's a question. That's a question for the audience to ponder.
Yeah, but what does that mean? What does it mean when data becomes currency, and also what does that mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So thanks. Any last tips about anything about the crypto space? You should do more YouTubes, by the way. I saw you haven't uploaded in a while, but I enjoy them.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time. I've been traveling. I don't have my computer set up anymore, so
yeah,
I haven't done anything. But when I do, I've gotten this request a few times, so I have to get back on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that super huge discussion about technology and everything, definitely, I guess my piece of advice for people is turn off the TV sometimes, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Tell your family and friends that you care about them. Be thankful for what you have in life and live in the real world sometimes. It's like it's not a problem if you can turn off the phone.
Yeah,
here and there.
That's true. And hey, thanks for doing this. And make sure you tell me what when your coin goes live. I'll buy some of it.
Oh sure. So you guys can follow me on. So my Twitter, by the way, is @PhilBeforeShill. You can follow me there. I'm also a fantasy writer, by the way. So I've
really me also.
Really?
But yours sells a lot more than mine does because I never tell anybody about mine.
Yeah, so it's on my Twitter, so you guys can go and check it out. It's on my bio.
It looks like a good book. I haven't read it yet, but I did click on it.
Oh, nice, cool.
And I should. I have 2 books I never mention. But yours has way better. You need to put me in touch with who did your cover art, because my cover art I got some guy to do it and it's not good.
Oh, well, we should talk about it later. Send me a message on Twitter. We'll talk about it.
Okay, I will do. All right, man. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not good at bed. It's almost 1 a.m. where I am.
Oh, I'm gonna go back to bed now because it's 8. I woke up early.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Cheers.
Right. Cheers.
Theory, shock waves, hydrodynamics, astrophysics, weather control, atomic energy, computer technology, and theory of automata, game theory, rings of operators, lattice theory, shock waves, hydrodynamics, astrophysics, weather control.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Atomic energy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Computer technology.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Theory of automata.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.